Ascension messages. Questions and answers, an unimaginable universe, separation into integration.
Question. I still don't understand why the deception and manipulation is taking place, even though I know you have explained it. This seems like such a malevolent force. How have some 10% slipped through the net and why? My vision is of the huge capacity for Earth as an indigo healing center. Maybe it's a fanciful vision. It would seem from your messages that this is not something that is wanted by whomever or whatever, working against it. What or who benefits is it to have Earthlings in purposely created hive mind states? Please excuse the question that I know you will have covered. The picture is becoming so much clearer and easier for me to understand. I just need further clarification, it seems. It's like scattered pieces of a puzzle that are coming together, and I haven't quite got a fuller picture yet. With gratitude and kindness. And I am trying to understand the conflict of being a multidimensional, or an interdimensional being, experiencing Earth today. Why do you think it is still necessary to suffer, and from what level do they want this, especially if no one really wants to suffer consciously from a 3D level?
Answer. All of you are super beings, you need to know why you are this way. You think you are all multidimensional or interdimensional beings. Inter meaning you filter between dimensions and being in one or another, multi implies that there are many dimensions. Both terms describe the same thing and both are incorrect. The density or dimension you are in is only limited to what you create in your own mind, your own ideas that are the walls of your mental prison. Everything is a dream, and it is easy to say that I am this interdimensional or multidimensional being, bringing this information to you, and this is what we are doing here, stretching or elasticizing your minds to a greater awareness in consciousness. We have a practical purpose of being here, to show humanity how to stop creating their own nightmares, as many do not see that they themselves are actually doing this to themselves. We are sharing with you why you do not see it from your point of view, be it 3D, 4D or 5D or whatever the D, because there are no Ds, this is only in your minds, to help you understand higher and lower consciousness, and this is so that you can see who the ruler or controllers of Earth actually are. The humans that feel like they are worthless or crawling around in the gutters of life, give themselves no value or accept the judgments of others, that they are worthless, valueless humans that do not count and therefore are not deserving to live. So, they suffer with these mental problems, suffering with their existence. Thinking that no one understands them or appreciates them, many having suicidal thoughts, and yet they are the most wonderful beings that have ever existed with the absolute power to change everything. However, they choose to be there. Why, you may ask? For the contrast. They just want to be there, to be happy, to feel alive, to enjoy the simple things in life, but instead they suffer. They suffer because they want it this way. It is themselves, victims of themselves. Although the ultimate purpose of life is to enjoy good times, to be happy, it will not necessarily be given in that lifetime, because the level of understanding of how things work is still in the making within their minds. They still need contrast/duality to be able to understand things, this to suffer a miserable life, in order to have the contrast with a better one, with clearer ideas about what they really want. However, they do not need to have these experiences by contrast in order to learn. Yes, it can be learnt without suffering, but they still do not understand the important and basic fact that it is just a stage of a process they are learning through. Although the purpose or desire of life is to be happy, the true purpose of life is to learn, and unfortunately, failure and suffering are great teachers. However, they must learn the most important lesson, and that is, that it is not necessary to suffer nightmares in order to know that they do not want them, in order to understand how or what they do want to live. We want you to know, we cried sharing this with you, we are very emotional beings, and that is our strength, not our weakness. It is what flows from our beings towards you.
Question. How do we know we can change things if we are asleep and are a young soul?
Answer. Because they do not have any contrast to form the idea of how they want life to be. It is important to understand the contrast of duality, or nothing will be clear to you. That is why we say, they are at the early stage of experiencing, from certain levels or perspectives. Because they are the ones that matter here, they are very young souls.
Question. From higher planes where there is no duality, why go through this stage of suffering?
Answer. It is because in itself, by having that concept, just because it exists, it generates its opposite, and if they did not have this concept, they would only be source itself, which is what they are, eternal, as they always have been. However, to reach another level, they must have passed through a simpler one as points of attention of the source itself, or else they would not even exist. By having the concept of being a person, you create the concept of learning and of progression.
Question. There must be realities in between these extremes where the concept of suffering does not exist?
Answer. Suffering is a stage within this process. You cannot know anything without some kind of previous reference. As we have shared before, there is no real external reality. Everything is based upon the interpretations that each person gives to the quantum field that is outside of themselves. There is no matter, no such thing as a material world. Everything is a spiritual world, and matter is only an idea in your mind, created by your attention of experiences. Time is the rhythm of your thoughts, and gravity is the direction of where your thoughts go. We have explained this concept at some depth in the mechanics of manifestation, and this is also an idea. Having said this, you cannot know this if you do not hold some context to it, and the context is someone letting you know what it is for. For example, to know what a table is for, or a wheel is for. However, these ideas are quite elaborate, and if you go to the most basic idea of context, it is that one idea differs from another. You are now in the basic understandings of duality, that in order to exist, it will need its opposite, being that it could not exist without that opposite. The mere fact that you think of something, you are referring to the existence of its opposite. So, to know light, you need darkness; to have good, you need to have evil. So duality at its most basic level is a very good tool to convey a meaning and an idea or concept. It is the only way in the lower densities. If you have a young soul, not going into why it is a young soul at this stage, it needs to learn the basics, and the very basics is the contrast in duality, that is implicit in all things. This is a lower density or realm characteristic that defines it as such. The simplest duality example from where all others depart from is, if there is a me, then everything else is not me, in other words, me versus not me. Therefore, with young inexperienced souls, duality and contrast is a very necessary way to understand that they exist. This is efficient, at least at first. So being at a young stage, they get stuck in this stage of learning, needing duality for everything for contrast. They want pleasure and enjoyment, so they see suffering as the means of achieving what they want. The more they suffer, the more contrast they will have in order to be able to appreciate the experience and live its opposite, even if it may not be in the same lifetime. As the universe works, you cannot have the concept of needing to learn, without the concept of having learnt. It is from the concept of higher densities that all souls know that they are everything. If we look at the perspective of humans down there, they do need to learn, and a lot. So, a way to explain this, in order for anything to be anywhere, spiritual or not, you need to understand a context, and that context is nothing else but an elaborate set of meanings, you based on duality and contrast. All souls are the same age, because they are all one. However, for the concept of age or progression, or one being more advanced than another to exist, contrast from lower realms is needed. So each soul at each point of progression is really just a point of attention of the unified soul or the source itself. It is like a person with several university degrees, who now sits with early school children and talks to them at their level, and at these moments, this person forgets that they have these degrees and just focuses on being at the level of the young children. As with the source, each person has full potential as they are the source itself, and it is in what you are seeing or what your attention is focused on at that moment that is creating your reality. Even non-real people only exist in contrast to real people, and vice versa. The fact that someone is real inescapably leads to the concept that there may be someone that may not be real. Even so, observing a non-real person is just one more concept, a decision to observe it or not.
Question. I'm still trying to understand for the need to be a young soul, and needing to go through the basic stages, if we are all at the same age.
Answer. Let us say that the young soul is still stuck at that basic stage and that they have gone through it at another stage. In order to have been through it before, they must have been there, at the early basic stage. However, there is no time, so they are still there, a part of Source is still there. There would not be any higher souls without the lower souls. All beings want peace and happiness and integration. The problem at the lower level is that humans want the experience, and for integration, you need disintegration to be Source. What is Source? Time, and timelessness, all integrated. However, with this, there is no awareness, no experience, nothing. Growth through suffering will bring the opposite for those souls, as they will not be able to experience love and integration without its opposite. There are levels of integration. If you are completely integrated, you cannot be aware, because you need consciousness to be aware, and consciousness needs a flow, and even awareness brings its opposite into play, being not aware. It is the price for total integration, the loss of self, because you are everything with no contrast.
Question. I am trying to understand that when you fully integrate the you and the me, you or we become nothing?
Answer. You cannot be you without the concept of what is not you. Being me comes out of the concept of you. You cannot be aware of you if you do not have the idea of me, if you are everything. You can say, I am everyone, close to everything, but we still hold me and you as a contrast. In the moment that you become everything, you become nothing as well. The higher you go in densities, the closer you are to Source, and the more you progressively lose the sense of self. So, as you progress in your spiritual journey, you find that the sense of self is universally proportional to integration. Therefore, the more the sense of self you have, the lower the density. The more sense of integration, the higher the density. Your sense of self becomes larger as you move forwards in integration. If you feel that your identity is that of all humans, then you are integrating them all into your concept of self. Your concept is larger. But you are less of an individual and you become more of a hive mind, more like the mind of an entire species, but still with a sense of self, moving towards Source. However, you still have contrast on earth and above, as well as more and more awareness and more consciousness. However, yourself is less particular to you.
Question. So, as I expand my consciousness and become more integrated, my sense of self is expanding and I am more. I am trying to understand how the self becomes less particular to me?
Answer. At the very top, you are losing sense of self. For example, not at the very top but close, your consciousness is that of the entire Milky Way. Who are you? A galaxy, not human, but a galaxy, but you do also have a sense of you as a human on Earth. However, your awareness is more particular to a galaxy with billions of beings who inhabit that galaxy, yet you are not Source yet. You are a galaxy, not a human, therefore, you have lost the identity of self, as human, and your consciousness has expanded to the galaxy and not as detailed or as particular as it was before. If you become a galaxy cluster, it will still be a you, but in the minute you become everything, then you do lose all self, in favor of total integration, that is the equivalent of nothing. In the moment you think you have become nothing, total integration, you are still something. Because, in that moment it still means that you are contrasting the thought to the now, who you are now, as you think about this. Some think that being nothing, or an empty void is equivalent to total enlightenment. This is like buying a blank canvas for a painting and saying that it is the most exquisite masterpiece, just because there is nothing on it. Therefore, it has the potential of being anything better than any of the masters, but no, there is much more, for you can do something with it, you can create with it, imagine with it.
Question. Why is nothingness not a statement of enlightenment?
Answer. Because this is how the universe works from there in 3D. You create rules and create contrast and grow from these experiences to a point where you can write new ideas, create new universes, for new awesome experiences. This is why this universe exists as it does, with all its galaxies, and everything is awesome that is going on in all of them, to be something, to create a self, to create a universe. You never stop creating, that is the description of eternity, and any idea from before is still source. At the very top level, just before total integration, nothing will remain, and from here, something totally new can be created. A new universe written in a new way with unimaginable events, with nothing taken from this universe, nothing taken from before. A truly unimaginable universe, created out of nothing. Tawana, Tawa, adventure with joy, with all its multiple meanings.